Good morning, Anton. How's it going?
Hey, Darn. Doing well. Good morning.
This is our
And
second chat. It's kind of
yeah,
exciting.
me too. I kind of like this. It's
So I
real
was,
cool.
yeah, I know. I was thinking about this last week. A name for this. I think calling it morning chats is a little bit meh. So, you like coffee. I
I
like
do.
chai. So maybe we should go coffee and chai with technology, with events, with something. Maybe what we can do is put it out to the social community and then see what options people like. I don't know. What do you think?
I like it. I like it because it becomes very democratic for us to actually ask our peers in the industry, hey, Anton loves coffee. I do. I do. I take 8 cups of this every
Eight
morning.
cups of
Like
coffee.
chai.
Oh, wow.
Eight
Okay.
cups of coffee. I know. It's the flavor. It doesn't do anything for me. Grew up in Miami, Cuban coffee versus regular coffee. Not much of a difference, not much.
Fair enough.
But
Fair
you like
enough.
chai, so I like it. Coffee and chai and technology. I like it. I like the
And
sound of it.
something. I don't know. I don't know what
And well,
that, but it
yeah,
has to be and something. So, I don't know. Let's see what people come up with. We'll put it out
let's
there.
give it a try.
I think it'll
Yeah.
be kind of
Yeah.
fun. So last week we put out our first video. I
Mhm.
think it was pretty good in the sense of some of the feedback that we received. So that was kind of exciting. And we did leave off talking about the possibility of expanding on RFID and beacons because that is a topic that's happening right now. But so I think today that'd be kind of fun to talk about and kind of dive a little bit deeper into that. Obviously, not spending so much time on it because people got stuff to do. But that'll be kind of good. But before we dive in, what were the three new things that you tried between the last video and now?
Ugh, well, when you know me, I like to try a lot of new things here and there. One thing that I did try is this new restaurant. A friend of mine recommended. Uh, it was good. I wouldn't say it was excellent, but it was good. I'm gonna give it a second chance because I wasn't too keen about it. But new restaurants they have a new processes and trying to find themselves, like many of our
Yeah.
new companies that are coming here and there. And then I tried a new yoga class, which I can tell you, somebody lied to me. They said, "Yeah, you feel like little minions are massaging you." No, that's not true. I was in pain for like 2 or 3 days after that
Oh
yoga
man,
class.
I remember when I was in DC, I went to the Down Dog Power Yoga class there in Georgetown. Whew. It shaped me pretty good, but it was fun. It was really good.
And then what I'm trying now is also because thinking about what is good well-being for all of us is, COVID did a little trick to all of us. So I'm trying to reduce the amount of food that I don't need to be eating and be a little bit more healthier, just to like shed off because I was trying my pants the other day and they're a little bit tight. So I think that everyone is in the same boat on that pants are tight, so we need to like restrict a little bit. So let's see how that
Yeah,
goes.
I
Slowly
feel
but
you.
surely.
I think that's everyone's sentiment right now. From my end, I actually attended a cool little play called 9 to 5. That was kind of fun.
Ooh.
And I'm not a big play guy, and this one was really cool. And it was also in a town where they filmed it. Crazy.
What a
So,
setting.
yeah, that was wild. So that was
Cool.
interesting. And the second thing is I'm getting more into the philosophy of coaching versus consulting mindset. I find
Nice.
so there's some podcasts that I started listening to that have definitely help that thought process quite a bit. Because consulting's consulting, but coaching you're actually more focused on a one-on-one standpoint, and see where it goes. I think there'll be more to share in the coming weeks, so to speak, on that one. And the third
Very
thing,
cool.
you know, fun little restaurant called Curry-ish. I love Indian food,
Oh,
and
you do.
I
I
love
know you
Indian
do.
food. And this restaurant, whew, really cool, man. Like, good shout out.
Mhm.
And it's like Indian food, but it's with a twist, and curry-ish. So that's kind of cool. All
Compared to the
right.
one that we had in San Francisco, where would you put it? One, two, three? Because you love the one in San Francisco.
That one's, I think I think it's a tie with this one. That's pretty good.
Oh,
That's pretty
really?
good.
And
Yeah,
we had a
yeah.
good tasting in that restaurant in San Francisco. That was good. I have recommended to friends when they go to San Francisco. You
Yeah.
gotta try it out. That's great.
2 weeks, four
That was
times in a restaurant, that's something else. Anyways. All right, let's get started with our second
okay.
episode. Let's not curry, coffee and chai, or coffee, chai, and whatever. We'll figure that one out.
We'll
So
figure that one out.
here we go.
So
All right.
definitely. You mentioned the topic before, and I was with Meeting Planet Friends the other day, and that topic came back time and time again. I think that some do have a very good understanding what the difference between RFID and beacons is, and some truly don't. There's a kind of like a mixed match, and I know that you know more than I do, but tell me what is all this RFID versus beacons, or beacons versus RFID, and so on and so forth, because it keeps coming more and more. I think it's because people want to have a better understanding of how the behavior of the attendees is taking place.
Right. So that's absolutely it. And the premise of these technologies really comes down to is tracking attendee behavior, as you've mentioned, but also understanding, like, what are your attendees doing? Well, that is attendee behavior. But in terms of connecting with each other, connecting with exhibitors as well, and whatnot. So the thing is, there's two fundamental technologies, RFID and this beacon. So RFID allows you to provide the tracking as well as it would for beacons, but it's how it's done. So RFID, think of it as when you're going into a store and you have those gates at the side of the door, and then when you walk in, it's ding ding, it does a little chime in the sense of a store. Whereas with beacons, it's actually a little hockey puck style little sensor, like a reader, that gets put into different areas. So it's more proximity based versus going through an entryway. So now let's say if you're doing a plenary session, you could have everybody walking through, and they walk through an entryway, and you kind of track them going in, and then when they come out, you track them coming out, and then you can do a differential, like Dharma spent this much time in this session, right? So that's RFID.
Okay.
With beacons, you can do the same thing, but you would put the hockey pucks, or the sensors, sort of, I call it hockey pucks, being Canadian, but you put these sensors in near the entryway, and then as they go through and come out, you can still do the same function of tracking in and out, that this person has been in this space for this amount of time. The difference is, let's say we're doing a tracking in a booth, for example, or an activation area. So in an activation area, you can have these readers put throughout. So you can say, in this space, we're going to track for product A. In this space, we're going to track for product B. In this space, we're going to track for product C. So if you walk through this space, essentially this perimeter, then you will be tracked accordingly of how much time did you spend in that space. Whereas with an RFID, you have to put a gate. So you have to always pass through something to get tracked in that scenario. Let me show you in a diagram. I think it'll be kind of cool.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
And in this booth, we're going to have 3 spaces that we want to track. So essentially, we have your product A, your product B, and your product C. Now, what's going to happen in this scenario is I'm going to now have the ability to bring in, let's say in the scenario of a RFID. So with RFID, what I need to do then is I need to close off, essentially, this area. There you go. I have to close off this area. And then the issue becomes is when a person does get in here and then get out, we're not going to be able to see which specific A, B, and C's they have actually entered into. Whereas with the entire process for beacons, what I can do here is I can put in a perimeter essentially in here, in here, and in here, And then as the person walks through at different areas or goes through it, then they'll be tracked accordingly to see which time period they're going through. So at the end of the day, it's about seeing what data points we're trying to capture for best use. So if you're in an open space, beacons definitely the right way to go. If you're more in an ingress or outgress kind of scenario, like in and out, then RFID is the spot to go. Now, with that, there's also the application process for some of these technologies. So with RFID, for example, it's like this is RFID. This needs to be pre-applied essentially on a badge or on a holder, and then on site it gets programmed essentially with the barcode that's printed on the badge. So there's a lot of pre-work that needs to get done for this. Same applies for beacons, where beacons is a little chip that gets either dongled onto the lanyard or embedded into the lanyard, depending on the supplier that's there. And then that gets programmed on site as well. Like as soon as with the barcode that you get in the badge, that gets barcoded into the beacon, essentially. So that's really what comes down to beacons and RFIDs. And then there's obviously more tools in terms of data points and what you do with the data. But that's another discussion on how you're using that data to make better decisions after the point. Because you can collect all this data and do nothing with it. And then what's the point?
Which is the $1,000,000 question that many planners have. Like, yeah, we invest all this money in RFIDs, beacons, or what have you, and then there's data. Wonderful. What happened to the data? That's a huge follow-up.
Right, and I think the best way to use this data is really, for example, number one, from an exhibitor standpoint or an activation area, to kind of see how many folks are entering a specific booth. Right? From a sponsorship standpoint, there's a nice way to upsell that for the next year to kind of say, hey, look, like, in this area, we actually can see, because there's a food station or because there's a tech theater or whatever it may be, or maybe it's even a primary partner, a booth, a big attractor. Around these key components, you're going to get more attendees. So that answers a really good question to help possibly upsell some booth spaces and activation areas through the show floor. So that's a really good use for that data.
Which is a key component for many planners because they're looking at better sources of revenue and how can that be better utilized. So if I'm understanding correctly, the difference on how using RFIDs and beacon is based upon what are you targeting or planning to upsell or obtain information from that particular component, because obviously one is more focused in one specific space versus the other one that is a much broader space in how to track. Or is that correct?
Yeah, exactly. RFID would be tracking a room, whereas beacons is tracking a area, like a perimeter.
So can they be used combined, or they need to be separate? Because that's another question that I remember coming into the conversation. Like, well, when I use them both, and I'm like,
no, I mean, it's not recommended because you're still going to get the data that you want. It really depends what you're trying to capture. So you never want to. I personally don't recommend doubling it up, because you're still going to achieve the data goal that you want. It's just that one gives you more abstraction on how you're tracking the data, versus the other one, which is RFID, also gives you data, but more in the sense of like I entered an area and I left an area. Whereas beacons tells me I've been in this space for this much time.
Oh, which that's important, because basically one is kind of like on the old-fashioned ways when you used to have a clicker, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, X number of persons enter and X number of persons exited, versus okay, entering that image we're in this particular area in the, first of all, the exhibit floor for 2.5 hours or 2 and 45 minutes and analyze the behavior.
Well,
or in this a particular spot.
It's right? More for a particular spot, because with RFID you can still tackle like this person's been in the exhibit floor for 2 hours, because they went in an entry point and then left an entry point. You see what I mean? So RFID can do the same thing. Sorry, beacons can do the same thing, but you can actually, based on where beacons are placed, you can get more detailed data. Yeah, not accurate, detailed. They're both going to have, I would say, I would say there'd be a certain percentage of gray zone that may not get tracked because, we're being humans, we have big bodies of water, and based on that, sometimes those scans do get missed. But again, it's to give you an idea. It's not to accurately track. Now, if you're going to do accurate tracking in sessions because you're doing CE credits and stuff like that, then you do need someone to scan your badge versus count it on just based on, RFID or beacons, because it will give you the data, but you'll still have some gray zone in that scenario. Now, it's not a big gray zone. I would say it's about 5%ish, 10%ish, but I don't know. That just depends.
That's an awesome point, because that's many of the concerns of many of our planner friends, that they want to make sure that people enter the room, especially for CE credits.
Yeah.
What is the most accurate way to make sure that they are? Well, we believe them and it's on our system. We expect that you say that you were there for the most part, but it's good to have a good tracking. We're humans after all.
Yeah, exactly. And that depends, right? Some associations are good with the honor system. Some associations are good for attendees scanning their own badge on a scanner. And there's some associations that you have to be scanned in and scanned out. And based on the time that you're there, you get X number of credits. But that's, again, not to do with beacons or RFIDs. It's more so related to session scanning or, stuff like that. Now, RFIDs, you can do it, but I mean, it's a matter of opinion when that happens.
I agree.
I would not recommend doing that. But anyways, so that's the difference between RFID and beacons.
Well, thank you for the enlightenment, because now I can have a better conversation when I'm talking with my meeting planner friends and we're talking about RFIDs and beacons, which, correct me if I'm wrong, RFID is radio frequency, what is it?
Identifier.
Identifier, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then let me just double check that, because I don't want to get...
Radio frequency identifier. No, you are correct. I remember I looked at it. Radio frequency identifier.
The radio frequency identification. There we go. So pretty close. But, all right. Awesome. Well, next week, I mean, definitely we'll try and address something else that may come up throughout the week. But an idea is if there's any questions that someone does have that wants us to cover from a technological standpoint, food too. I mean, I'm open to sharing food feedback as well. Love food. Honestly, send an email like at dharmesh@streampoint.com or anton@streampoint.com, or post it in the comment section where the videos are. And that would be good insight to kind of see what you're thinking about, and we can add it part of an episode. That'd be kind of fun.
I think that's a great idea. I love it.
All right. Until next week, enjoy the rest of the week.
Yeah, and
long weekend.
Labor Day's coming. Yeah, Labor Day's coming, so happy Labor Day, guys.
That's it.
It's coming. September. Hey, can you believe it? September.
Went too fast.
All right, y'all. All right.
That's it. Well, thank you so much, and until next time, bye.